So Viridiana, welcome to Guided Home Podcast. Thank you for coming and sitting across from me, but most of all, thank you for being my sister. Thank you for being my friend, my colleague, co-facilitator. I'm getting emotional just saying it because we've been through a rapid journey in just a short amount of time, because we only met last February when we had that meeting to talk about an event that you were hosting. So I'm just getting emotional because I feel like we've done so much together. And I'm so glad that you're here. Not only here sitting across from me, but here in the office.
Yes.
So can you tell our audience, who is Viri?
Yes. Well, first, thank you. I feel like our journey has just started, but at the same time, I feel like I've known you a lifetime.
Yeah.
I feel like we have crossed paths in another life too.
We probably have.
Right?
Yeah.
So, yes, my name is Viridiana Rodriguez. I am a licensed clinical social worker. I am a daughter. I am a Thea, which is an aunt. I am a friend. I am a healing guide. I'm a licensed therapist. I'm a dog mom.
Yeah, you are Bodhi.
Bodhi has been in my life for 3 years now. And I hold space. I'm a space holder. I'm a human being just like anybody.
Yep. Just going through the journey. Talk about Viri as the therapist, because I know that is a huge part of your story. That's a huge part of where you have been and why you are where you are at now. Talk about that. Talk about, going to school, getting your master's.
Yes, I feel like that within itself has been a journey. I didn't even know that I was going to go for a master's.
Okay.
I was at Cal State Fullerton. I was about to graduate. It was my last semester. And I'm like, what am I going to do with a bachelor's in human services? Like, I had no idea what to do next. And someone had actually just was applying, herself, she was applying for grad school. And I was also in an internship that exposed me to the type of work that I was really interested in. So my last internship with my undergrad was at CAST, which is Child Abuse Services Team.
Wow.
And it's a team of people. It's a detective, a DA, a therapist. So it's a team that comes together, and essentially they're behind a double mirror where the client, the child is in there to be interviewed by a therapist, but behind that mirror is a team, so that the kid doesn't have to repeat their story and be re-traumatized. So it's a very trauma-informed interview. I was part of that team, and I was exposed to therapists that were working with students and children, minors that were experiencing child abuse, anything from emotional, physical, and primarily sexual abuse. And they were there to be interviewed because they were going through an investigation process. So I was a child advocate at the time, is what it's called. And I was there to support the children that were being interviewed. And I really enjoyed the whole process. I really liked it to the point where I saw multiple of those therapists, and I'm like, I want to do what she's doing.
Oh, that's amazing.
I was like, what am I supposed to do? Right? So it was through the county, and they pretty much were like, you have to go do your master's. So I'm like, another 2 years of schooling. I'm like, okay. So at that point, I was like, I'm not sure even where to apply. And it was pretty late. Anyways, I applied for USC and Cal State Fullerton. Cal State Fullerton did not accept me. And then USC would put me on a wait list. And then I was like, well, if it's meant to be, it will be. And then 2 weeks before the program started, they called me.
Oh my gosh.
And they let me know, we have a spot available for you at the Orange County campus in Irvine, if you're interested. And I'm like, wow, what does this even mean? Like, I don't even know what I'm getting myself into. But because nobody in my family has ever done what I've been doing. There hasn't been an example of it. So I was like, at that time, I was in a relationship, and his dad had a master's degree.
Okay.
And he was like, my dad has a master's degree. Talk to him about it. And I did. And I think it's interesting how life happens along the way, right? But he was like the only person I knew that had a master's. And what does that even mean? So, yeah, I went for it.
Wow.
And so I did my master's degree in social work. And I started my career as a school social worker. 2012, I started my career in school-based mental health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing that you just kind of were following footsteps that were not laid out before you, but you were just kind of like, okay, I'm just going to go for it and just see where this takes me and where this lands. But it's really neat that you got a chance to take a moment to see other therapists and to see them work with the children.
Yeah.
And that's what caught your eye.
It was really interesting. I really liked their approach there at CAST. Yeah. And I was like, wow, I like how they're very client-centered and that they didn't want the child to repeat their story, right?
Yes.
And that can be very traumatizing, right? And I mean, we can go into it later, but even the EMDR approach and how I work now, that you don't have to really tell me your story to reprocess your trauma.
That's amazing. So then how long have you been in the social work realm?
Yeah.
In the school realm? And then how did that transition into seeing private clients?
So I started in 2012 at Orange County Department of Ed. And I started my career there I was there for about 5 years as a school social worker. And I provided mental health services for students on a school campus.
Okay.
And during that time, I also collected hours. So you have to do 3,000 hours after grad school to become a licensed clinical social worker and take these tests, right?
Okay.
So I did my 5 years there at that district. And then I really wanted to go back to my school that I was as a student.
Okay.
So it was always a dream of mine to go back to the school that I attended.
Yeah.
And so I went back to Anaheim Union High School District after that.
Wow. Okay.
So from Orange County Department of Ed, I went to Anaheim and I'm like, wow, I'm here. Like I came back and I'm now providing to my own community. And I would always talk about how I was meant to be there because in the field of how I started, I was always the one that I needed on a school campus.
Oh, nice.
So, so I did school-based mental health for 10 years, essentially. So from Orange County Department of Ed, I went to Anaheim. And then from Anaheim in 2020, pandemic hit.
Oh, okay.
And my body started talking to me. And I started feeling unhappy.
Okay.
And that's when I started to really feel very stressed. Okay. And the needs at the schools are very high with mental health. And there's so much capacity that we can do there. And I was just feeling super unhappy. And I was like, okay, maybe it's the district. I didn't know where to go. It was 2020. And I had a friend from Irvine Unified School District reach out to me. And she's like, hey, if you're interested, come to this district. And I'm like, okay, let me try a different district, right? Yeah. Let's see what happens.
That's my district where I went to school. Yeah.
So then 2020, I went to Irvine, and I did my last 2 years there. But in my transition between the two districts, I was doing private practice part-time.
Okay.
So I launched, I started at a group practice, and then I was like, after a year, I'm like, I can do this on my own. So I launched Amar Therapy.
Okay.
Amar means to love in Spanish. So yeah, I was doing that on the side. And then I was still doing my school-based mental health Monday through Friday, my 9 to 5. Wow. And then I would do Saturday mornings, private practice.
Wow.
And I did that for a good 3 years.
Okay.
But then the last year, which was my 10th year in school-based mental health, shit hit the fan, essentially. Yeah. There was a lot of things that came my way that I started questioning. Okay. I started really feeling unhappy. My body started talking to me again.
How did it talk to you? What was it doing? What was it saying?
I started feeling intense pain on certain parts of my body.
Okay.
And I consider myself a pretty healthy person.
Yes.
And when my body started talking that way, I'm like, this is not a normal for me. Like something's up, right? Like I'm unhappy. I'm stressed. I'm hitting a wall here, essentially. There was a lot of things that happened that school year that really changed my life. Yeah.
So can you talk about that?
Yeah.
Can you talk about what was it that really just, what was the wall that you were hitting up against?
Yeah.
But also, was there a situation or a circumstance where it really just kind of changed everything for you in that situation?
Yes. So, trigger warning on here. But I experienced the loss of a student due to suicide.
Okay.
And when you're in a system of education, and you're a provider on a school campus, you're often put in so much pressure for students' performance or even mental health wise, right? Like, what is it that you're not doing, or what is it that you didn't cover, right? Like checking those boxes, essentially. So I experienced a loss, and now I can actually talk about it without crying, which is a lot of growth within me.
Right.
I've been doing a lot of work with it, but I started questioning myself, like, what didn't I not do? What, the good enoughs, right?
Yeah. Like I wasn't good enough. I didn't do enough.
100%.
Were there things that I missed?
100%. Yes. All of that.
Was there a time where you felt like you were blaming yourself?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And there was a lot of times that I would wake up in panic. I would wake up like severe panic.
Sure.
In the beginning. A lot of the times. And I'm so glad how like the environment essentially that I was in.
Yeah.
In the district I was at, because my supervisor there was so supportive, and she automatically, because she knows the way I work and she knows the passion and that I put into my job and the heart that I dedicate it to, she's like, I do not want you to question yourself. I know that you did everything you could have. Wow. So
That's heavy.
It was so heavy. It was dark.
mean, I know that we're going to kind of get there, but since we're on this particular topic, it's like you and I this past May went to Irvine to offer for mental health awareness month. We went to offer meditation, breath work, sound healing for Irvine, and it was a really I felt really grateful to be able to do that, because it is my alma mater, and it was a place that was a very beautiful place. I had a great high school experience there, and to be able to give back in that way was very fulfilling, full circle moment. But it's so also very disheartening to know that so many of our students now are not receiving the mental health support that they really truly need, because I think there's a gap between what we're really understanding about mental health and what the underlying issues might be, and how do we get there, right? And I know that and I guess I'll ask you that question now is, so, having experienced that, it being extremely traumatic, having you kind of question everything, and now knowing what you know now, because now you are a healing facilitator and you facilitate, co-facilitate, hold space in other ways. What happened between that moment of, the loss and questioning yourself to where you are at now? How did you find the other modalities?
Yeah. So it's been a process for me to go deep into what those cognitions, right? The cognitions of I didn't do enough.
Yes.
I mean, that goes back to childhood.
Yes.
I mean, being a daughter of immigrants, right?
Yes.
So yeah, that goes back to even my childhood. It was the surface essentially.
Yeah.
And it just went all the way down to childhood adversities, right? And my mother wounds, and different healing modalities that I've been in the process. I'm a big believer that, because I don't like to be set in a box.
Okay.
And that was part of my process too, of leaving school-based mental health, where I'm like, I'm more than this, and there's more to me, and I have a bigger purpose, and I need to take that leap of faith and courage to leave and do my private practice full time.
Okay. So that situation kind of edged you out of being in that paradigm in the school-based mental health system. Okay.
Oh yeah. That was like the rock bottom for me, essentially. Okay. That was like that tipping point where I'm like, that's it. Because then after that, there was more things that were happening. It was like the universe telling me, do you want another reason? Yeah. Do you want another reason? Right. Like it just kept coming. Yeah. And I'm like, all right, I just have to do it. It's like I'm being pushed out of here. Yeah. And I have to listen to that.
Yeah. It's so interesting that you say that, because a lot of times when we're unaware, we think that all of these seemingly, because we're the ones that put the meaning to a circumstance or a situation. We're like, oh, this is a bad situation. Oh, this is a good situation. Whereas, some people who have a different awareness are like, this is a situation that's trying to teach me something or show me something, right? And did you have that awareness back then where you were like, or you were saying like, this is really bad, I need to get out of here? Okay, so now in hindsight, you have that awareness of like, the universe was trying to tell me this is not the place for you. Okay.
Now I can say that it didn't happen to me, it happened for me.
Correct. Yeah.
Now I can say that.
Yes. Yes.
But back then I was in it.
Yeah.
I was totally in it. And like I said, I would wake up in panic. I would have a support system that I would reach out to during that time. I had a therapist, and I had my own EMDR therapist, and we worked through that cognition and the body sensations and everything. Now, like I said, even talking about it, I don't have the same response.
Okay. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's healing, girl.
Oh, girl. It's been a roller coaster, but that is what you got to do.
Yeah. Did you use other modalities in that time to kind of move through it?
Breath work.
Okay.
So breath work has been very essential for me.
Let's talk about when you first found breath work, and was that kind of a aha moment for you? Like, oh my gosh, what is this? And okay.
Yes. Yeah. So I tried breath work. I was at a conference training for therapists. Okay. And essentially I had signed up for it because I really liked how they were bringing all these holistic healing methods to the conference. I'm like, oh, this is up my alley. This is essentially where I'm heading, right? And I attended it, and one of the modalities was breath work, which I had no idea like what exactly it was, thing. Right? Yeah. So then we got in a circle, and like everybody started breathing, and I was like, what is happening to my body?
Yeah, girl. It's good stuff.
Yes. And then afterwards I was like, what was that?
Wow.
I need that in my life.
Oh, I love that.
And then afterwards, the day after, I like literally woke up like happy, and then started dancing like in my bathroom by myself. And I'm like, wow, what is this? Like, I need this for my body. I need this for my soul. Yeah. So then I just started doing it every so often that I felt like I needed it, It's not like a constant practice, but I feel like I need it. I attend one. Yeah. Yeah. Or I just go to one or make the schedule, whatever I got to do, It's just me knowing what I need along the way and doing it now.
So was that kind of the entry point into the somatic, I guess the somatic version of what you knew as a therapist?
Well, EMDR has a portion of somatic
of the
work.
Somatics. That's true too.
Yeah. So EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So what it does, it works with mind-body connection. Okay. So so we do ask, like in between sets of bilaterals. Okay. We ask what are you noticing?
Oh, got it.
And some of it is body sensations. And then when we go a little deeper with memory, we ask about where do you feel that in the body? So when we focus on a specific memory and then there's a cognition, and then we ask also body sensations. So
that's amazing.
EMDR has a component of somatic.
A somatic component to it. I probably needed that when I was 20 and I had a really bad car accident. And I did suffer PTSD, but I didn't know it, right? Until it manifests later and I'm having panic attacks and wow.
So I've done breath work, Reiki. So I did Reiki. My first experience with Reiki healing was right before I took my LCSW exam.
Oh, okay.
So I felt that at that time I had a lot of test anxiety.
Okay.
It's a 4-hour test. So I was like, how am I going to sit on a 4-hour test? You know? And academically, I just have had some trauma academically with like my performance and being a student. So, and some
how did you know about Reiki? Like, how did you find Reiki?
I found it through a friend.
Okay.
A friend pretty much was like, hey, because I shared with her, like, I'm kind of feeling nervous about this 4-hour test, right? She's like, go see my friend Amelia. Amelia Cuevas. She's like, go see her before your exam. She's going to align your energy from head to toe. And I'm like, I don't know what this is. I'm just going to trust it. I'm just going to go with it. Whatever this is, right? I'm like, she's saying that I need it and it's going to help me for my test. I'm willing to try anything, right? To pass this test for the first time because I don't want to take it again, right? So I was like, okay, I'm just going to go. And it changed my life.
Oh my gosh.
And
I love that.
So I've been, obviously, I did it then. And then I did Reiki 1 training myself.
So you decided you wanted to get certified after that. Yes, girl.
Yes. And then after that, I did Reiki level 1 and then Reiki level 2. And that's what I'm certified in for Reiki.
I love that you incorporate the energetics with and the somatics with the cognition in terms of how deeply we can heal and understanding the depths at which human beings can and need to heal. Because even you as a therapist, and that's why we work together a lot, is that you understand that cognition only goes so far. Then it goes even deeper than that. And then even in, Reiki, what you're finding is like it goes even generations and lifetimes.
Oh, yes. So I always tell my clients, therapy is not going to be the end all be all for your healing journey. It hasn't been for me. And I practice what I preach and I let you guys know what I would recommend. And I do feel, because I see it in sessions, that EMDR and therapy can only get you so far. And I refer them to go do another healing modality, or we've done combinations with intensives, right?
Our intensives with breath work and EMDR. Yes, it's beautiful. And so talk to me about then when you started to, so that I'm going to circle back to when you found breath work and you're like, what is this? And then you woke up and you felt lighter and you felt, like there was probably a weight lifted off of you and you started dancing and that sort of thing. So then what was the trajectory from there in terms of like, okay, I want to like pursue this. I want this to be part of my offering. How did that all kind of transpire? Was that like in the last couple of like 3 years, 4 years?
The breathwork part?
Yeah. Just incorporating like your practitioner or your like co-facilitator hat.
Well, essentially, since I've done different healing modalities, I also did an event, right? So that's where you and I met.
Right.
Where I was like, what about if I just host an event where we have all these different healing modalities? Because I'm all about wanting to share the wealth, right? Like I want people to feel this. Like I want people to know that there's other ways of healing. And so essentially I hosted this event and I just reached out to people or people reached out to me and I wanted them to do mini sessions, right? It was mini sessions of whatever modality is it that you do. So I obviously had 3 different massage therapist at the event. And then I had acupuncture. I had cupping. We had breath work. And then we had Reiki healing, and then we had sound.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yes.
Yeah. So that event, essentially I was like, wow, okay, all of this, right? Like I'm hosting the event and I'm bringing everybody together. And then I started to just also realize like I can do some of this too. Right. And getting more curious, I think. And another part of it recently is when I went to Bali, I think coming across people's paths, like people actually crossing my path too.
Yeah.
And
you mean in real life?
In real life.
That last time that you went to Bali after you did breath work with me.
Yes.
And then you left like I think the next day or two.
Yes.
I remember
right.
that.
So I met Kristine Gutierrez, and she's also a licensed therapist, but she's also much more like holistic.
She's like a shaman of sorts, right? Or like a...
So she does rites of passage work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she was like from across, I was reading her book. I was on a trip, on a retreat in Bali.
Right. And I was
and I had her book and I was like, I look up, I'm like, oh man. I was like, that is the author of the book I'm just reading that I have.
Right. I remember that because I saw you that you posted on your story and I'm like, and then I saw Kristine because I was following her too.
Yeah.
And I'm like, she's in Bali too.
Yeah. Yes. And it happens to be that we stayed at the same resort and I was seeing her and I was like, I am reading your book.
Oh my gosh.
And she's like, there was just something about you when I saw you. She's like, I just felt this energy. And she's like, you should attend and do my rites of passage program. And I'm like, tell me more.
Yeah.
And then, interesting enough, she had already reached out to me on a DM like back in January.
Oh, got it. Okay.
And this was the second time, right?
Yeah.
So the universe, one way or another, is like, girl, this is the second time around. You got to do this work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So then I'm like, all right, I don't know what this is again. Again, trusting the process and just, I'm like, I don't know what the rites of passage work is.
Okay.
Like, what is even this program? I'm going to like drop $3,000 on this. Like, what is this? Right. But I'm trusting it. I'm going for it. And I know one way or another, it's going to help me personally and my business potentially, you know?
Sure.
So I completed it and it's a whole thing, you know? It's got me to now open up and do women's circles, women's containers, right? Healing parts of my feminine energy.
Yeah. So let's talk about that because all of this stuff you had no idea about when you were going to school to be a therapist. Well, actually, you weren't even going to school to be a therapist. You just, that came after when you were exposed to the therapy with the children. And so all of this has kind of been unfolding step by step, little by little. And it's kind of just taken a life in and of itself for you. And you've kind of curated like a whole thing. A Marte community is part of your community-based offerings. So tell me about what it was about the rites of passage that kind of shifted everything for you.
I feel like a lot of being a woman, right? The feminine energy. And even in my culture, me as a Latina being raised, wasn't really taught to talk about my body. To even listen to my body. Right? To that it's okay to slow down, to not keep doing as much, right? I'm constantly hustling. I mean, I am a workaholic. I can be, and I have to like slow down. I have to remind myself that it is okay to slow down. That I don't have to keep doing. And that is part of what I learned a lot in the rites of passage, and that holding space for those little moments of nuances are super important too. Doing ritual, right? Doing ceremony.
Let's talk about that for a second, because a lot of times when we put out there, because I know that I've put out the word ritual, when I've put out the word ceremony, it probably gets a little bit of pushback from community that doesn't understand what that means. They're like, oh, what is this, a cult? Or like, oh, what is this? So what does ritual and ceremony mean to you?
Honestly, just really holding space for myself. like sitting within myself, listening.
Yeah.
Listening to what my internal dialogue is trying to tell me when I am just going with life, you know, doing. And ritual for me is slowing down.
Yeah.
And giving myself that self-love that my body needs, and that just the more of the like nurturing. It's more nurturing, I feel like.
So what it sounds like is that a ritual can just be how you interact with yourself. You get up in the morning and you brush your teeth and you get ready for the day. That's a ritual. But like we can also have our own rituals where we get up and perhaps we have an altar or a sacred space or a special place where we say prayers or we meditate or we light candles, we light incense.
Which I do all of that.
Yeah.
I at first called it my meditation corner, right? But it's shifted also. I feel like even like ritual in therapy room can be a habit. It's just called different.
Sure, it's just different vernacular,
It's
different
just a different
words.
term.
Right. But I know that, you know, when I use it, say for example, and I'm talking about my offering and I talk about meeting together in ritual, meeting together in ceremony, for me, there's a specific reverence and intention that I use those words in because when, you know, it's almost like when two or more are gathered in my name, I am there. Well, that was a quote that Yeshua spoke. But it does mean the same thing. When two or more are gathered with great intention to accomplish something, then there's beautiful things that can happen. And so, you know, when I do my group, quote unquote, ceremony, it is with great intention that we come together to enter into a space of healing through breath work, through meditation, through sound healing and that sort of thing. And I just kind of wanted to touch on that a little bit because I know that there's still so many people that look at words like ceremony and ritual outside of a church setting, outside of a religious setting, and there's pushback of like, what are they doing? What is that? And you know, I have a client who is also a therapist, and one of the things that kind of dropped in her session was each time you get together with a client and you sit in front of each other and you are talking about life and you are talking about experience, circumstance, emotion, that sort of thing. That's ceremony.
That's ceremony.
That is ceremony.
I mean, it is. It is.
And when we can look at, you know, a therapy session in that respect, there's just this deeper reverence to it, right? And I know that you hold that space for your clients because I've seen it. And, you know, it's just, I think one of those things that we can offer in our conversation today is just for anybody who does offer, you know, therapy or is a therapist, a counselor, a coach of any sort, is that, you know, anytime you gather with one person, another person,
ceremony.
And it's ceremony. And when we treat it like that, then it really kind of brings in that idea of namaste, right? The divinity in me recognizes and honors the divinity within you. And there's a whole new vibe and there's a whole new respect that we have for that person. When we're in their presence. Right? Because there is no separation. You know, you are holding space as a therapist. You are holding space as a facilitator. But really, truly, what we've found in our offerings that we've hosted together is that there is no separation between us as a facilitator and those who are experiencing it. Let's now talk about that, though, because I think one of the reasons why you and I are here today and why the trajectory of our relationship, our friendship has taken this rapid pace is because we started hosting men's healing workshops together. And so talk about that for you. Talk about the impetus for you to say, hey, I think I want to do this.
So in my practice as a therapist, I see men and women who come to see me to work on themselves, symptomatic symptoms of anxiety, depression, PTSD, past trauma, right? So a lot of the men that I was seeing individually were not having spaces in community outside of the therapy room to really connect about the type of work they're doing and really having these meaningful, vulnerable conversations.
Right.
And with that, my cousin last year passed away, which was another reason why my work with men holds such a personal part in my why.
Yeah.
So I was like, why don't we start to create something for men that isn't therapy like, right? It's just a space for them to come and build community and really connect with one another, with the ones that are open to try something like breath work.
Yeah. And
that's when we got together.
Yeah, started working. Well, first of all, thank you so much for trusting me to partner with you to do that.
Yeah.
And thank you for being a visionary.
Yeah.
Thank you for being somebody that sees and that can see the needs of others, and then you create. I mean, like, you've created so many containers for healing, but you are truly a visionary in seeing the need.
Yeah.
And saying, hey, let's create this offering. Let's create this retreat. Let's create this event. Yeah. And thank you for doing that. Because it's because of you that I've been able to work with the community and continue to do my work with you, and why our relationship just kind of came into full fruition, and now you're here at Ascension. But I agree. So interestingly enough, when you had asked me about hosting that men's workshop with you, I had already just had a small group of men myself, and it was just kind of serendipitous that that had just happened for me, and I was like, yes, I'm totally down. But it was so incredibly powerful because it's called Anchor into Healing. Our first Anchor into Healing men's workshop was about 25 men.
Yeah.
Which
20.
was 20 men.
20.
It was a lot. And we started off with the breath work, the meditation, and the sound healing. And we did not know what to expect. We did not know what was going to become of it. And it was incredibly powerful. It was
deep.
First of all, I've never been in a space like that with that many men in a healing capacity. It was very humbling because what it did for me was pulled the wool over my eyes as to, oh my gosh, our men are suffering too. Our men feel isolated too. Our men have all sorts of things going on within them too that perhaps they haven't felt like they've had permission to feel, to look at, to do anything with it. And then to see them do it, and for them to do it in community, was very humbling. And I mean, like, I can't say enough about it. I mean, I've been on my journey as well with my husband and our children and that sort of thing. And it was just a testament to the fact that we haven't really been seeing our men with a clear vision. And because of spaces like Anchor into Healing, it has created that space for men to be seen. Like, just seen. That's it.
That's all they need.
That's all they need.
Yes. They when they have the space, they can really go deep. More than women, I feel like.
Yeah. And do you think that for men it's harder to come into community than women? Because I feel like innately women, we're like, let's call our girlfriends and let's talk about this. Like, we're going through a rough time. Like, let's get on the phone, or like, let's get together with our girlfriends. For men, I feel like they suffer more in silence because of just the world and how the world has fashioned us to treat men, to look at men, how they've told men how they need to act, right? It's like, suck it up, man up.
Machismo.
Yeah. I mean, that sort of thing. Yeah. And so, I think that was a huge factor in the humility piece for me, was that these men showed up in spite of the fact that doing what they did, showing up in community, breath work, laying on a yoga mat, listening to sound bowls and that sort of thing, and then getting together in circle.
Getting uncomfortable
and talking about it. Like, that big, and it was beautiful. And I think that that's why men continue to come back to our anchor into healing circles and do the work.
Right. It's such an honor to be in that room. I feel like every single round, we've had 4 rounds, and every single round it just gets better and deeper, and they keep coming back to some of them. And it's such an honor, like, again, to be in that room, to hold space for them, to see them just really feel that deep feeling of anger, whatever it is that they need, the sadness to release. Yeah. That's been stuck there.
And we did see a lot of release. You know, there were men there that were crying, very profoundly. The breath work that we do, the pranayama breathing, is very activating. And so we saw some physical experiences and that sort of thing. And it's also something that they've never used prior. I think maybe there was the first time that we did it, there was one other man that came who had experience with it. But other than that,
they've all been new.
And it is a beautiful modality in that it is not used ever. But when somebody is introduced to it, like you and like me, we're like, what was that? What is this? Because the way that the breath work works is that it gives you all of those feel-good feelings after the fact, after you do the work of it. It gives you all of the feel-good feelings and perhaps, dare I even say, like psychedelic feelings, simply by just using our God-given gift of breathing. And it's another way to access how to feel good in our body. It's another way to access a release in our body. And previously, I'm pretty sure that most of us have used other things, right?
Yeah.
Alcohol, drugs, sex, you name it. Like, we've all used all the things in order to not feel. But the power of the breath is that it allows you to feel all the things and you can literally feel it releasing out of your body.
It's powerful.
So thank you for asking me to even be a partner with you in this. And so you started the men's work before you even started the women's work, which is really, really interesting, because I want to talk about that trajectory, because you started the men's work, and then I think right around that time is when you actually started the rites of passage, which I believe, if you want to talk a little bit about that, the rites of passage really was geared towards women.
Just women.
Okay.
Yes, it's a feminine rites of passage.
Okay.
It was just women. I think because I am constantly in my masculine energy, that I relate to men more often than women.
And so let's talk about that, because for people who are listening who are not really understanding, like, well, what does that mean? What does it mean to you to be more in your masculine energy?
That I'm protecting myself, that I am constantly doing, right? What else? Essentially that. It's a lot of that.
So let's like just touch on the fact that, like, all of us have that we all balance between a masculine side and a feminine side. And really, truly, the goal in life is to be able to balance that. But yes, that masculine really, truly is that protector.
The protector.
Right? Yeah. The doer, the go out and do, protect their loved ones, their family. But the way that we embody it as women is we're protective of ourselves. We guard our heart. We are maybe not wanting to touch our feelings or see our feelings as much. And then we keep ourselves busy.
Yes.
Right? Okay. So
yes, I am a mastery of that. I do.
A master of keeping yourself busy in order to distract, right?
Yeah. So that's constantly on my masculine, right?
Right. So then the rites of passage.
The rites of passage work, because, I mean, even if you think about school-based mental health, right?
Okay.
Just like everything, even what I did in my career was a lot of that.
Okay.
Was being in a system like that too.
Okay.
Right? Masculine energy.
Okay.
Always being on survival mode, essentially.
Right,
like my nervous system was on survival mode for 10 years. And I am unlearning a lot of that, and unlearning that it is okay to be more in my feminine energy. With the Rites of Passage program, I learned how to balance it.
Okay. So what does that look like for you
right now? To feel more.
Okay.
To go deep into my body and understanding that when my body needs a rest, to give it to it, to give her what she's needing.
Yeah.
To not push it,
Yes.
to not force it, to be in flow.
Yeah.
To be flexible. All of it.
All of the F's.
All of the F's.
No, but that's right. I mean, force is
Yes.
masculine and flow is the feminine aspect of it.
Even learning about my first bleed as a woman, you know, the Rites of Passage literally got me to think when I first had my period and how that was very traumatic,
Sure.
you know, and
Right.
how to now have a better relationship with my flow, with my moon cycle.
We're not taught. Like, it's almost like, damn it, I wish we were taught. But now that's why we're here, right? We're learning all the things so that we can pass on this beautiful, deep ancestral wisdom of relearning or remembering what we have long forgotten, what we have been divorced from, because the world has just kind of changed and shifted to what it is now. And I know that we are definitely kind of reverting. There are so many of us that are remembering, relearning what needs to be relearned and remembered in order to pass on different information than the current information. And that's a big deal. Like, understanding that our cycles as women is actually a privilege and an honor. And it is a beautiful rite of passage that we get to experience every single month.
Right.
And not only that, it's aligned with, you know, the cosmology, you know, the moon. And that's why it's called menstruation, because the etymology of the word really comes from the word, you know, moon.
Yeah, so it's really changed my life, honestly. Even being more mindful and intentional on how I work, when to schedule clients, when my body is on my cycle, not scheduling as much, you know, really listening to my body and what it needs, and being okay with rest.
Oh my gosh. Like, so much of our culture is that hustle culture. So much of the culture is, if you didn't accomplish 5 things on your list today, then you failed at your day. And like, sitting down and doing nothing because your body needs it is considered like, you know, I didn't do anything. No, you actually did a lot. And I have found that when I do have those periods of rest, is right after that happens, is like when I am pumping out so much production of it, so much energy. Like, I have the energy to do all sorts of things. And again, that's the cycle of life. It's like, we're not meant to constantly be revving the engine.
And be on. No.
Yeah.
That your nervous system is not meant to do that.
No, it's not. And then I went through adrenal fatigue in my late 30s. I found myself on a highway, pulled over because I was having a full-blown panic attack, had to call the paramedics, right? So your body tells you, and that's why I asked you before, like, what does that feel like? What did that feel like when your body was like telling you things? Well, I didn't know this at the time, but my body was telling me, girl, you are on a path of mass destruction if you don't stop and figure this out. And that's when I went into therapy and you know, that's kind of what started the trajectory of kind of where I'm sitting at now in the healing space, was learning about myself and learning about myself through my relationships with my family, with my spouse, with my children. And I, you know, that's going to be a 10-year span now. So it's kind of been like this long trajectory to understanding our body more. And that is, being in our body is really truly understanding and listening to that feminine aspect of ourselves.
Listening to ourselves, and we're not taught that. I was never taught at such a young age to listen to myself. It was like, calladita te ves más bonita, which translates to,
my husband says that.
Yes. Which, in the Latino culture, that translates to you look the prettiest when you're silent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
He doesn't say it to me, but he says that as a joke.
Yeah.
Because it's something that has been ingrained in your culture.
It is.
Yeah.
It is, right? So it's that dicho that it is in our culture, and you were raised with it, and then you have to unlearn it because it is subconsciously there. And once you become conscious of that, that wild woman's going to come out.
Yes.
But it's important. It's important to listen to ourselves, to listen to our body, to listen to our intuition, because a lot of that is what brings in what you're needing in life.
Right. It's
happiness, love.
It's because so much of our culture has been taught to be silent that we have the most problems. Not only just even speaking our truth or talking about our feelings, or even being able to identify the feelings and saying, you know, I'm really sorry, but that hurt my feelings. That doesn't, feel good. And just something as simple as that. But not only that, our culture has learned to silence the pain in our body. So go take a Tylenol for that. Stop crying. I'm going to give you a toy. Stop crying. I'll give you the ice cream. Stop crying. You have nothing to cry about.
You have nothing to cry about.
Yeah, right?
That's another one. I'm going to give you something to cry about. In Spanish, they say that often.
Right. Same thing in the Filipino culture. I'm pretty sure I've said that in my young mom years of what are you crying about? There's nothing to cry about, right? Had I known what I know now, like hindsight 2020. But again, it's an insidious programming that we have no idea the ramifications of it until we're sitting in our therapy room 30, 40, 50, 60 years later saying, why am I feeling like I'm falling apart? Or even worse, sitting in a doctor's office saying, why am I riddled? Why is my body riddled with all sorts of dis-ease? It's incredible. So incredible. So then you, going back to the rites of passage that really kind of gave you that balance, or the learning of how to balance that masculine and the feminine within yourself. And then I think after that is when you opened up your women's container. Talk about that. What is that offering, and how has that blessed your life as well as blessed the lives of those who you serve?
So I did already my first cohort. So Amarte community, Amarte means loving yourself in Spanish. And I do a lot of workshops through Amarte community, but also I have this 8-week container for women. So any woman that is wanting to go a little deeper into their self-love journey, we meet virtually once a week. Okay. And we talk about ways of how to love ourselves in a holistic way, holistic healing way, like rituals, right? Ceremony. We do breath work. We do Reiki. We talk about just the feminine energy. And then even just being amongst women. And just relating to each other, and that we're not alone. I think because we thrive and we need connection, right? That community, that 8-week container program for the first cohort, it's brought so much awareness for some of them already. We completed it, but some of them have reached out to me again and just thank me that they didn't realize how disconnected they were from their bodies. And they had done the therapy work, right? So I bring in a lot of body, a lot of body healing into this container. So it's been powerful.
And you're offering that again starting in the fall?
In the fall, September. So I'll be starting second cohort in September, another 8 weeks.
And it's a beautiful container because essentially you are teaching women the connection between the mind body. And because you are Reiki 1 and Reiki 2 practitioner, you have that understanding of our energetic systems, our chakras, and you understand how breath and how sound and how really truly healing on a quantum level matters to us as a whole. And so it's beautiful that you bring the even though that it's not a container that's a therapy container,
It's not.
You bring the knowledge
I do
as
bring-
well as the energetics.
It's part of
into
me.
it.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's part of
So I think it's very powerful.
Yes. It's part of me. It's part of who I am. So I bring in a lot of the chakras. We talk about each of them and where they're feeling the sensation and what it means. And if they resonate with that, I also bring in the 4 elements into dance, and we do some somatic movements.
Yeah.
I have guest speakers.
Yes.
You're one of them.
Yeah.
Because it's a community, so it's not just me. So I bring guest speakers that have made a big impact in my life.
Yeah.
Come as guests and present their modality.
Yeah. It's really, really beautiful. You do like I said, you do an incredible job of having a vision, creating a container, and creating community. I think that's one of your gifts that you have. And I have thoroughly enjoyed working with you. I think that's why we're so close and we work together so close.
Yes.
And is there anything else that you wish to share about your journey? With those that are listening?
Yeah. I feel like we tend to put ourselves in a box a lot of the time.
Amen.
And it is a lot of the times the reason why we put ourselves in this box is because of all the narratives we're feeding. We are being fed.
Yeah.
Right? In so many different levels, culture, family. And I always ask clients in my sessions, whose narrative is that?
I love it.
And if you want to unlearn that narrative, or do you want to take it with you still?
Yeah.
So whatever that is, I want you guys to get curious about that, and be you.
Yeah.
It's scary sometimes.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of courage, but being you is what's needed in this world.
It is. And there's a lot of unlearning.
There's
like you said, there's a lot of unlearning that needs to be done in order to really whittle us down to the truest essence of who we are. And I like how you ask, whose narrative is that? Because that's something that in my one-on-one sessions, I talk a lot about, or even in my family with my kids, I ask, is that a story? Or is that reality? Is that something that's real? Or is this a story that's being curated in your mind?
Yeah.
And just the awareness of that shifts perspectives, just the awareness of that shifts. And, the narrative piece is important. And I'm going to share this little piece because, and I think it's kind of funny, but I grew up not understanding and not realizing how small I am. Okay. I am. I'm 4'11".
Yeah.
And I grew up being teased. I grew up with people saying, oh my gosh, you're so cute because you're so teeny tiny. And for the longest time, I'm like, really? Like, am I? And I talk about this a lot in terms of this turning point for me, this aha moment of, I didn't know how short I was.
Yeah.
It wasn't even a thing for me until everybody around me started to point it out. You're so tiny. You're so cute. Oh my gosh, you're so short. Right? And then it starts to shift the narrative and the story that you tell yourself in your head. So for a long time, I thought, oh my gosh, is there something wrong with me?
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Am I not worthy of X, Y, and Z? Or am I not attractive because I'm like that? What's wrong? And I grew up with that for a long time into my adulthood.
Yeah.
I'm going to even say in the last several years is when this aha moment really came to fruition for me. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So it was a period of unlearning, like, there's nothing wrong with me. This is who I am. I was created this way. And that's the narrative that's been feeding certain stories that I've had in my head and how I've acted and that sort of thing. So again, it's a very powerful reflection to ask ourselves, whose narrative is that? Is this a story that you continue to replay in your head? And are you going to continue to allow that narrative or that story to play itself out? Or are you going to be the director? Are you going to take control and change that narrative?
Be the creator of your life.
Because it's then and only then that we are able to unravel the truth of who we are, when we start to release those stories, release those narratives, and really start to peel back the layers. So thank you for sharing that, because I think that is a huge piece.
Yes.
It's so important. And
yeah.
it does take the cognition aspect
Yes.
of healing. It takes the cognating around that. And then deeper than that, it takes the somatic work. It takes that, okay, where is that being stored in our body? Where is it that we're holding that, that story? Where is it that we're holding the energy? Where is that we're holding that pain?
And I do that through an EMDR lens
too. It's so good. It's so good.
Through that EMDR lens, the cognition and like the earliest memory that's tied up to that cognition, right? And then where you feel that in the body, and just let it go wherever it needs to go as you follow those eye movements. And what that does, it's activating the right and the left side of the brain to desensitize that trauma response that's stuck there.
Yes. Yes. It's such a great modality. And it's so funny. I have the body keeps the score right here because the issues, it says there, the issues are in the tissues. We hold the energetics of our emotions in our body, in our tissues. And so EMDR really gets to, be able to experience it on the somatic level. And then with the EMDR intensives that you and I do together, then we go even deeper. We go even deeper than that. So again, thank you so much for even, offering that, curating that offering for your clients.
Thank you.
So before we end, I'd like to ask you a question that I ask all my guests, and that is there a song or a sound that sings you home?
The waves of the beach. Being by water.
Yes, girl. And
Nature.
You just were at the beach.
Just the waves, the sound of the water. Being by the ocean.
Yeah. Girl, water is so healing. Water has memory. It has the ability to...
I'm a water sign, so...
Oh, you are?
I'm a Scorpio.
Oh, yeah, you are a water sign. No wonder. I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you for, again, just being you and...
Thank you.
Allowing me to walk this journey with you and being a partner in this journey with me.
Thank you.
And I know that most everybody will know where to find you, but just for our listeners who don't, where can people find you? How can they work with you?
Well, thank you. Thank you. This is such an honor for me to be here. And thank you for just receiving all those parts of me and making it feel very safe for me to do that.
Yeah, girl.
So
I got you.
I love you.
I love you too.
And you guys can find me at social media in Instagram. I'm Art Therapy. And I'm Arte Community.
Okay. Yeah, and your website is?
amarttherapy.com.
Okay. And they can also find you here at Ascension Quantum Wellness.
Yes, and I'm here.
She is our you are our resident therapist on Tuesdays.
On Tuesdays right now.
Yeah, right now. And if there's more need, then you can be here more too.
Yes.
And then we also offer together our Anchor into Healing, which is our men's workshop. Pretty soon, I believe we're going to be curating a workshop retreat for women that is much like the Anchor into Healing for men. So
it's coming.
It's coming. Stay tuned.
It's been asked for, so it's coming.
So it is coming for sure. Yep, absolutely. Thank you so much. I love you.
Thank you.
And until next time.